up everyone, it's Jamie and this is my 2019 first quarterly wrap up. So this is me doing a little wrap up for the first 3 months of the year, January, February, March. Now the way I'm going to be doing these, at least for a little while until I figure out all the kinks, is I didn't want to have to tell all my thoughts on every single book I've read, just because I write fairly lengthy reviews for every book I read. Eventually some of them take a while, but generally I have pretty immediate reviews. So I didn't want to have to, and I'm much more articulate in writing too, so I didn't feel like a video format was the best thing for me anyway. But I still wanted to talk about the things that I've read. So I figured a good compromise for that would be to do these quarterly wrap-ups. I'm obviously not going to talk about everything I've read, because I, so far this year, have read 48 books out of my goal of 120. I'm like 19 ahead or something. So it's going not to toot my own horn or anything, but it's going pretty fucking great. But I don't want to have to sit here and talk about 48 books. So instead, I'm going to break it down month by month. I'm going to tell you how many books I read in the month, my 5 favourite books of the month, and then my least favourite books of the month. I'm hoping that my least favourites will never be above a 3 or so. So far, I've got, the highest I have is 3 least favourites. Hopefully it stays that way. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start with January. I read 21 books in January, which is my best so far this year. And right up there with some of my best ever. It's not quite up there with my August, September, October of last year, but it's not half bad. And I'm going to tell you first my 3 least favourites, and then I'll go into my favourites. So, coming at number 3 for least favourites was Rocket Raccoon and Groot Volume 1 Tricks of the Trade by Scotty Young. I have nothing to say about this. It was just dull. It's a superhero comic, obviously, and they generally will have 5 to 6 issues that tell an overarching story. Maybe it is the first piece of a puzzle in a story for a whole series, or maybe it's a self-contained story. This didn't really do either, which I don't like. I don't like comics that don't really fit into either of those 2 molds, which, I mean, say what you will about me for that, but whatever. It was like, there were 2 stories within 1 volume, so I really enjoyed the story in issues 1 to 3, and I didn't like the story in issues 4 to 6, but then I didn't like the art style in 1 to 3, but I liked the art style in 4 to 6. It was very frustrating, because I really like Scotty Young, and he can do better, and this just wasn't that. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It was just bleh. The next book I also gave 2 out of 5 stars, and that is Illuminate by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I didn't like this. I don't get the hype. The Aiden novella has just been announced and everyone's so hyped for it, and I don't get it because I didn't like this. I think it's too long. I think the writers did not know how to write things concisely. I don't think the relationship was very well developed. Oh, should I explain what this is first? You probably know, although no one has ever told me what this was about. So I'm going to do it now. It's about these 2 teens called Katie and Ezra, I'm pretty sure. And basically on the day everything goes to shit is also the day they break up. And I shit you not. The first half of this book is their relationship drama, which is great if you care about the characters, which apparently a lot of people do. I didn't. The Aiden stuff was confusing to me. They must have had a number of pages they had to hit, because some of the shit in here, there is no reason to have so many pages of nothing otherwise. They also would use mock Wikipedia articles to convey information exposition, which is the worst way to convey exposition in my opinion, because it's the most surefire way for me to check out. It got very confusing and convoluted. I didn't give a shit about any of the characters because none of them really had personalities. And yeah, I don't get it. I'm very annoyed because I spent over $20 for this, which I don't like doing, especially not for a fucking YA paperback. And I've owned it for years. I think I've owned it since the year it came out. I reckon I've owned it for 3 or 4 years. And it ended up being crap, which is especially bad because every time it was good. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It was all concept, no good execution. But my ultimate least favourite, one I don't want to keep going into, is probably my most unpopular opinion in a while. And that is The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black. I did not like a single thing in this. I'm gonna try to break it down. So this is, Holly Black obviously writes a lot of fairy stuff, and this is a standalone that does fit into her Folk of the Air series, I think it is. It does fit in there, like in the Cruel Prince there are cameos from some of the characters, but it's very much so a standalone. and it's about these two siblings, Hazel and Ben, I want to say their names are, and they live in this small town that is known to the locals to have fairies in it, and in the woods there's this fairy boy in a glass coffin, and Hazel and Ben are both kind of in love with him, and then one day he breaks out, and shit happens from there. This book was terrible in every way, just in my personal opinion. The writing is nothing special. Like, that's the thing. I've never understood the hype about Holly Black's writing. I think it's very... There's nothing bad with it, but it's just fine. The characters had nothing to them. They were completely bland. They didn't have very distinct personalities. They didn't seem to have any sort of likes or dislikes or interests or anything like that. She tried to do something with the fact that Hazel and Ben's parents are neglectful, but it just completely fell apart. By virtue of me not caring about the characters, I didn't care about the relationships either, which sucked. There were things in here though where I was like, that could have been cool. That little bit could have been cool. But that wasn't enough for me to actually like it by going, oh, well, it could have been good. That's not good enough. It needs to actually be good. And everyone loves one. And this is the one I was convinced I would love. Because I read The Cruel Prince and gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. I didn't like it very much. I thought it was very whatever. I just didn't like it at all. And as time has gone on, I feel like I would hate it even more. But I just thought it was that book. So I went through Holly Black's, all of her other work, and this was the one where I was like, this is the one I'm gonna love. But here we are, 1 out of 5 stars. Didn't like it at all. Now let's get into my January favorites. Okay, starting for number 5 is, okay, so like NetGalley has this thing where sometimes you can just download books that are like months old. So it's kind of an arc, but it came out last October, so it's not really, it's hard to explain. But I got a copy of No Man of Woman Born by Anna Martel. This is an anthology series. Anna Martel is the sole writer in it. It's still an anthology then? I'm really unsure. I'm going to call it an anthology though. And they are genderqueer, and this is just an anthology that's basically reworking classic fairy tales and just classic heroic stories, and this idea of prophecies and things like that. In fact, they are usually very gendered and very cis-normative? That's what I'm looking for. Very cis-normative. So this is an anthology which features exclusively trans, non-binary, genderqueer, questioning their gender characters. No protagonist in this is cis, and it was just really fun. There's in almost every single story a moment that reminds me of in Lord of the Rings when it's like, no man can do whatever, and she's like, I am no man. There's a moment like that in almost all of these, and it's fantastic. None of them were bad. Literally, like, there was ones I liked more than others, but they were all really good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I would highly recommend. For number 4, I read the 7th book in the Ghost of the Shadow Market series by Cassandra Clare. Well, not series, the anthology collection by Cassandra Clare. And that is The Land I Lost, and I loved this. This one is about Alec, who goes to Argentina to look at a bit of a disturbance. And if you've read The Dark Artifices, then you know that that's where he finds his soon-to-be son, Raphael, who is a kid. He's like 5 or something in this, I think. And it's just so good. It has so many good characters. It has all of my faves. It has such good Mallet content. Such good domestic family content. Lily is just being amazing. And I just loved it so much. It is... I don't know if it's my favourite of Ghost Shadow Market so far, because I really do love Every Exquisite Thing, but it's second if it isn't my favourite. 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read the concluding book in the Timekeeper trilogy, which is Firestarter by Tara Sim. I love this trilogy. It's one of my favourite trilogies. I love Tara Sim. She's such a talented writer. Obviously, I can't explain what this is to you, but Timekeeper is basically an alternate history kind of series in which it's very steampunky. Clock towers basically run time, so when they break, time breaks. And it's about a mechanic called Danny who was recently in an accident, and he gets relocated to this small town called Enfield, and there he meets the clock spirit of the Enfield Tower. And the clock spirits are kind of this myth. They're basically like the heart and soul of the clock. And romance in the series. And I love this series. It gets fucking wild. This book was a wild ride. I read the end of this on a bus, which I would not recommend. It was very gut-wrenching. I also highlighted the shit out of this. Pink is romance, like all my cute romancy bits, so, you know. But I love the series. I love its commentary on colonization, particularly the colonization of India, because Tarasim herself is half Indian, as is one of the main characters, Daphne. And in the second book and in this book, they go to India several times, and it talks about that. I love discussion of women and queer people, and this book features a trans character. And Danny and Colton are just so cute, and I just love it so much. And I'm so sad it's over, but it ended in such a good way. I love it, and I'm so excited for Tarasim's next, I think it's a duology called Scavenge the Stars, which just looks perfect. And I loved this with my entire heart and soul. 5 out of 5 stars. Coming at number 2 for my favourite books in January, I read Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. Oh, this was so good. So this is a middle grade fantasy book about Morrigan Crow, who was born on a date, which means that she is cursed, which means that anything and everything that goes wrong in her general vicinity is very obviously her fault. So she gets blamed for everything. Her dad, you know, has to pay for all these reparations and everything. And basically she's meant to die on a certain day when she is 12 years old, I think. But then on that day she is meant to die, this very strange man called Jupiter North whisks in and saves her. And he takes her to Nevermore, and she has to compete in several trials to try to become part of the Wondrous Society. This is delightful. It's so happy and joyful and just full of wonder, but it's also dark, and it explores very dark themes, and Morrigan is such a good protagonist. And the hotel in this, I love, like this entire hotel of people. I love all the side characters. I love this so much. I'm so excited to continue on to the sequel eventually. And it's by an Australian author, which is also really cool. I like seeing that. So yeah, 5 out of 5 stars. And finally, one that I knew I liked, but I didn't realise was my favourite of January until I was doing this list. Firestarter by Stephen King. First of all, kind of wild that 2 of my favourite books of January were Firestarter, and I read these within like a week of each other, so weird coinky-dink. But this is my second Stephen King book. I had read Misery before this, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. This one though, this is one I hadn't heard very much of either. This one is not one that's talked about very often, probably because A, it's just not one that's very flashy, but also its movie adaptation isn't fantastic and it isn't terrible. It's just like middling from what I've heard. So basically this follows a man who is on the run with his very young daughter because he and his wife, when they were back in college, basically, you know, they're broke college students. They saw this thing where, hey, come to us, we'll just inject you with some hallucinogens and you get $500 out of it. And they were like, fuck yes. Except it wasn't hallucinogens. It was an experimental chemical, I guess, that made them have superpowers, kind of. So the main character, whose name is Andy, he has telekinetic powers, and his wife also had telekinetic powers, but they were nowhere near as powerful. And basically they were left alone, and then they had a daughter called Charlie who ended up displaying pyrokinetic powers, which is fire powers, one of my favorite kinds of powers personally. And this led to Andy's wife being killed and him going on the run with Charlie. And this is so good. So much of it is focused on this father-daughter relationship that is just so sweet because they just care about each other so much. And I love Charlie. She's never annoying, but she's also never written to be older than she is. She's like 7, I think, when the book starts. And she's a 7-year-old, but she also, you know, so she whines sometimes and things like that, but she also knows the gravity of the situation. And their relationship is just so sweet. Both their motivations is literally just to stay safe and to keep the other one safe. And the flashbacks are incorporated really well when you find, because the book literally opens with them on the run, like literally they're escaping from someone. And, oh, hang on. Did I say that Andy had telekinetic powers? I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I got confused. Charlie has pyrokinetic powers, but also a bit of telekinesis, and her mum had telekinesis. Andy, because I'm an idiot and forgot about this, has these telepathic powers that are similar to Allison from Umbrella Academy, where basically he, like at the start of the book, he gives a cab driver a $1 note and says, this is a $500 note, drive us here, and the cab driver sees a $500 note. I'm such a fucking idiot. He doesn't have telekinetic powers. Still great though. And it also shows you stuff from the villain's perspective, and that's done really well. I just loved this. I read this in like a day and a half. It's not short either. It's about 600 pages, not quite. It's 530. And it has some of my favourite quotes of the year. There are some very touching quotes between Charlie and Andy. There's one very good one from Charlie at like the very end that I've highlighted there. I loved this. This was so good. 5 out of 5 stars, 100%. Oh, they're gonna fall. So that's it for January. Now on to February. In February I read 15 books, and this was one of my best reading months in a long time. I only gave one book under 3 stars, which is the only least favourite I'm going to talk about. And that's On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden. I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. I don't get it. I do not get the Tilly Walden hype. I think she is a very good artist. I think she has good ideas, but I think she cannot write a story to save her life. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. So this is a sci-fi book that follows 2 timelines. One is of the main character when she was in kind of like boarding school and her falling in love with another girl, and then the current timeline is of her joining like a space restoration crew kind of thing. This had so much potential, but it's not good. Tilly Walden is not good at writing stories. She's bad at pacing. Her characters are very flat. They all have, this entire thing just screams of wasted potential. I liked the colouring, I liked the art, I liked the ideas, but I cannot pick up another Tilly Walden book if it's just her. I will definitely read something she does if she collaborates with a writer and she is just the artist. I will definitely read that, but I cannot read anything else where she is also the writer, because I don't think she's very good at it. And this is the second one of hers. I enjoyed it slightly more than Spinning, but that's maybe because I enjoyed the art more in this. It's just, she has potential, but I don't think she's a good writer, and I don't think she should be writing. But now on to my favourites. Coming in at number 5 is Backwards and in Heels, The Past, Present and Future of Women in Film by Alicia Malone. This is a non-fiction book. It's exactly what the title sounds like. It's the past, present and future of women in film, and it's fascinating and well written and well researched, and also by an Australian author, so I would highly recommend that. Next is something I'd already read, but I got a copy of and reread, and that is Heartstopper Volume 1 by Alice Oseman. This is a webcomic that's being published, and I'm so excited, and I'm gonna buy all of them, and I haven't read the new update yet, so I should probably get on that. But this is a prequel to Alice Oseman's debut novel Solitaire. This follows Tori, who was parents of that book, her younger brother Charlie. It's set a couple years before Solitaire, and it's just about him falling in love with his boyfriend, and it's super cute, and I'm so excited for Volume 2 to be published. I love this series. It's just so sweet, and it deals with some serious topics, but on the whole it's just, look at these boys, look how cute and happy they are, and there's dogs, and where the webcomic is now, they're going to Paris, and it's so sweet. 5 out of 5 stars. Did I mention Backwards and in Heels was 4 out of 5 stars? I don't know if I mentioned that. Anyway, next I read A Girl Like Her by Talia Hibbert. I read this as part of the Dragons of Tea book club. And being me, I read ahead because I cannot stick to a schedule. I had read one Talia Hibbert before this. I read Merry Infamous, which was just cute, fluffy, sexy Christmas fun. I gave that 3.5 out of 5 stars, I think. This got 5 out of 5 stars. This follows a woman called Ruth, who is a black autistic fat woman, and she's a bit of a recluse, and you don't really know why. You just know that something happened that has made her the town Jezebel, and basically she just stays indoors. She professionally writes a webcomic. Her best friend lives halfway across the world, is an internet friend, and then this very massive muscular guy who's very cute and very sweet moves in next door, and he's determined to get to know Ruth, or at least not treat her like shit, which seems like she wants him to do. And it's so cute, it's so sexy. The main character, being black and autistic, is Own Voices. Talia Hibbert is such a good writer. The relationship is so well done. Daniel can go fuck himself, and that was so good, seeing shit would happen with him and him get his comeuppance as the book went on. It's just, it's one of the best sexy books I've ever read, and it just got re-released with new covers too. So it's the first book in the, like, I think it's Ravenswood series, which is basically, it's classic romance series. It's the whole books that are connected within a universe and about all the characters in the series. They all hook up with people. It's that kind of thing. I think the sequel's about a sister, actually, from memory. But yeah, I love this. 5 out of 5 stars. Then my second favourite book of February will come as probably no surprise to many people, and that's On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. This is her second novel after The Hate You Give. This follows Brie, who is a 16-year-old girl who wants to become a rapper, and it's just always been her dream. Her dad had the potential to become a world famous rapper, but ended up being killed before he could quite make it. But he's very well known among their suburb Garden Heights, and she's sort of known as his daughter, and the fact that people are like, she's gonna go big because of this. So it's always been her dream, but now it's even more important because her mum has just lost her job, and her mum was a drug addict for several years. She's been in recovery for a long time, which means it's very hard for her to find a job anyway. And Brie now feels like she has to provide for her family, and it's about her trying to stay true to herself and trying to not play into other people's expectations of what her as a young black woman should be, while also trying to help and support her family, while also trying to help and support her friends, while also dealing with things with her aunt and her mum and her grandparents. And it was incredible. I actually liked this more than The Hate You Give. Something about it, it was just, The Hate You Give was a very small personal story, but this one feels even more so, and I really connect with those. I loved Brie as a character. She's so dumb sometimes. She makes such stupid, rash decisions sometimes, but I love her for it, and she always has the best intentions, even if it ends up going terribly. I loved her two friends. I loved her aunt. I loved her brother. I loved her mum. I just loved everything about this. There are so many poignant, like, one of the main plot lines of this book is the fact that Brie is talking back to the two security guards they have, and they decide that means it's okay for them to pin her to the ground and accuse her of dealing drugs. And there's this whole storyline in this about how the brown and black kids get very obviously treated worse than the white kids, and the administration just doesn't know, because they go to a slightly fancier school. They don't go to just the regular Garden Heights public school, which is predominantly black and brown kids, but this school is a predominantly white school. It's kind of the in-between. It's not quite Stars School, but it's not Garden Heights either. It's like a weird in-between. I love this so much, and the raps in it are amazing. Oh my, also there's several Black Panther references, which I just forgot about, so I wrote them. That's also great. But yeah, the raps are so good. Angie Thomas has performed them several times. I would highly recommend looking them up because she's amazing at it. I'm so excited for this movie. If they change a single word of her lyrics, I'm gonna riot. I'm so excited for this. And yeah, I loved it. Also, I love this cover. Like, it's gorgeous. Like, I liked the American cover of The Hate You Give more, but I like the Australian cover of this more. Now, you may be wondering, what could top On the Come Up? Fucking... Oh, I get a 5, by the way. Sorry, I'm interrupting myself. What could be on the come up? The Way to the Stars by Kay Ankrum. I got an arc of this because the author herself was on Twitter, and she was like, hey, you guys, just email me and I'll give you an e-arc. And I was like, fuck yes. So I did, and I read it in a day. I read it basically in a sitting. This is her second book. Her first book was The Wicked King, which I read last year and I loved. And this is set in that same universe, but it's a little bit further in the future. And this follows a teenage girl called Ryan, who her entire life has dreamed of joining the space program and going and seeing the stars. But she's an orphan, she has no parents, and she is 17 and she has to look after her 16-year-old brother and his infant. And she's also, they have no money. They live in a trailer park. She's just trying to make ends meet. And then one day, one of her teachers says that she needs to basically, you know, take under her wing a new student called Alex. Alex? Why am I questioning that? That is her name, right? Oh my god, am I wrong? I'm totally forgetting one of my favorite books of the year. Why am I thinking it's actually Alexia? Alexandria, yeah. Yep, I'm fine. A new student called Alexandria who is actually connected with the space program in a very interesting way, and Ryan is just someone that this teacher knows will understand that. So, but they don't get along very well. They have a very rocky start, which makes sense if you've read the book. And basically, it's just about these two girls and their developing relationship. It's a female-female romance, and Ryan also has this group of friends who are basically just very broken teenagers who she's just adopted. Basically, she's like, you need help, you're mine now. And it's so sweet. This entire group is either very openly or low-key queer. Ryan's younger brother is bisexual. Ryan herself and one of her friends are both gay. Alexandria is definitely queer, and then their two other friends are probably queer. There are several comments made that suggest that. Several of the characters are also people of colour. One of the characters has 3 parents who are in a polyamorous relationship who you will recognise if you read The Wicked King. Ryan's younger brother is also a selective mute after a series of events that happened in the past. And it's just so good. It's incredible. It's so well written. The characters are so messy and awful and endearing for that reason. And I love how Kay Ancrum writes teenagers and writes these very messy people, because she knows that teenagers sometimes need that. And she's incredible. I love her. I'm so glad I got an arc of this, because otherwise I wouldn't have read it for months. I kind of want to reread it in a finished copy. I want to I'm hoping that I'll get a copy for my birthday, but otherwise I'm just going to borrow it from the library, because this was amazing. It's probably going to make my very favourite books of the year. Then March rolled around. I read 11 books in March, and 3 of those were read on the 31st of March. I nearly only read 8 books in March, which might be fine for some people, but it's not for me. As I said, I read 21 books in January, so, yeah. And also March, up until that final day, was pretty middling. I was getting a lot of 3s, and I had 3 least favourites, so let's get into it. First, I had, actually no, coming in number 3 is When Katie Met Cassidy by Camille Perry. Ugh, this is about 2 women, Katie and Cassidy, who both work for law firms, and they meet each other. Katie has just gotten out of a engagement. Why do I not know how to explain that properly? She's just been broken up with, basically. She's aimless, doesn't know what she's doing. Cassidy is a massive lesbian player who never sleeps with the same girl twice, and they meet and things happen. It's so mediocre. I give it 2.5 out of 5 stars. It's just, there's nothing special. There's some really good stuff. There's some good talk about sex and going through the right resources if you're questioning your sexuality and things like that, but Katie is so unlikable as a character. I appreciate her exploring her sexuality, but that doesn't excuse her for just being terrible sometimes. Cassidy had nothing to her. The entire book felt very white, cis, gold star lesbian-y, if that makes sense. Just certain comments made about Katie basically not being allowed to explore her sexuality from other characters, and certain comments made about masculinity and femininity I really didn't love. The gay best friend stereotype made its way into a book that has almost entirely queer lady characters. Like, Cassidy's Taylor is just a massive stereotype. I don't know if his specific ethnicity is ever stated, but he's literally just the gay, exultant, flamboyant stereotype, and I'm like, seriously? We're still doing this in the year of 2018? Like, and this was written in 2018, which is even worse, and I'm like, are we really doing this? It's just, I liked again, conceptually it's good, and it just, nah, 2.5 out of 5 stars. Coming at number 2 is definitely the most disappointing one of probably the year, and that is Venom Volume 2, The Abyss by Donny Cates. I loved Volume 1, I gave it 4 stars. It was just fucking wild. It was my first ever Venom comic. It was just fucking wild, and this one was too, but in a very bad way. Donny Cates said, very misguidedly, that he thinks that Eddie and the symbiote have a toxic relationship, which, fine, whatever, you clearly haven't been reading anything Mike Costa's done in the past decade, but whatever. And that definitely showed in this, because it's literally just both of them manipulating each other in a not fun way, and in ways that don't make sense. And the worst part is, there could be something good there, because the whole thing is both of them are scared the other one's gonna leave them. that could just be some good angst, but instead it's not, and it's just about manipulation and mind control, basically. There's also a part where there's a very heavy implication that they raped someone. Which, okay, it was literally just there so that there could be a child. Which case I'm like, symbiote can reproduce asexually, just do that. But God forbid we don't brutalize women in comics, right? So yeah, this was just disappointing in every way. 2 out of 5 stars, I'm not going to be continuing. And I just want to reread Venom First Host now. Easily my number 1 least favorite though was After by Anna Todd. I didn't even finish it. I got about 10% through, I think. This is a 600-page book, guys. I hate the fact that it is my longest book that I've read all year. I need to read Pride of the Orange Tree ASAP just to rectify that. This is that Harry Styles fanfic that got turned into a book series and is now getting a movie. And I just figured, why not read it? Why not? What's the worst that could happen? So I bought it from the library in an ebook format, and I almost didn't read it, but then I went to a comedy show with my mom, and it took like, we were in line for like an hour waiting, so I just put up my phone and started reading it, and it was a mess. It's about a girl called Tessa who's going to college. She's very uptight, all that kind of stuff, and then she meets this bad boy called Harden, and immediately falls in love, even though she already has a boyfriend. She doesn't even like Harden, and it's a mess on so many levels. There's so much slut shaming. There's one of those classic scenes where she nearly gets raped so that Harden can be the good guy and be heroic. There's the fucking line about the lip ring. I lost brain cells, guys. Like, actually lost them. It's not good. I tried to read this back in the day too, back when I was like still reading One Direction fanfiction, and I've read some really good One Direction fanfiction. There were clearly better things to adapt and turn into real books, but no. God forbid we turn the good fanfiction into books. What we should only do the crap, right? Yeah, it was very bad. Would not recommend. At all. On a happier note though, let's get into my 5 favorites. I don't actually have any of the books for this, but I do have the sequel to my number 5, so I'm going to hold it up. So number 5 is A Princess in Theory by Alyssa Cole, which I don't have, so I'm going to hold up A Duke by Default just so I can have something to hold. So, A Princess in Theory is a romance book that's about this grad student called Naledi. I think that's how you pronounce her name. And for months she's been getting these emails that are basically like, this prince from Thesolo, an African country, is your betrothed. Please send all your details. And she's like, lol, delete. And one day she's having a bad day, so she just responds with, fuck you. Well, turns out there is a prince of Thesolo called Thabiso, who is actually her betrothed, and he takes that as a sign that he should go meet up with her. And it all goes from there. And it could have went very badly, actually, because the start of the relationship is him lying to her about his identity. But it actually goes pretty well, because she's given... Lady, I love her. She's given so much agency. She's a scientist. There's lots of talk about little microaggressions because she's a black woman in STEM. It's really well done, and I'm excited to read the rest of the series. This one is about her best friend Portia, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And then the third one is about her cousin Naya, who I love. And then there are 2 spin-off novellas. One which is about Thabiso's assistant called Likotsky and her romance with another lady. And then there's another one about Portia's sister Regina, who is disabled. She uses a wheelchair, and her little romance that's like geeky romance. That's probably the one I'm most excited for. And yeah, I just really liked that first book, and I'm very excited to continue on to the second one. 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Rough Terrain by Annabeth Albert. This is the 7th and final book in the Out of Uniform series, which is just smutty, Navy SEAL, pale male romance. And this one follows Cannon and Renzo. Cannon just works at a smoothie place near where the seals are. Renzo, you may know as Rooster from previous books in the series. He's a biodisaster, and basically they catch some feels and we think the other one's really hot, and then Cannon is basically going his camera trip with his old band, and his ex-boyfriend's gonna be there, and they're like, oh come on, just bring us in with another, and he's like, yep, that's definitely someone that I have. And fake dating ensues, and it was just really cute. It's definitely not my favorite of the series, but weirdly, I only give 5 stars to the even numbered books, like books 2, 4, and 6. The only ones I've given 5 stars to. All the others I give 4.5 or 4 stars to. This was a 4 star. It was still really fun, really sexy. Loved the characters, loved the rep and the diversity. It was really good. Sex scenes were really good. It was really cute. Yeah, I have nothing else to say. It was just cute. It was fun. And coming at number 3, we have We Shall Be Feminist by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is a TED Talk that she gave that I watched years ago. And from what I can tell, this is literally just a TED Talk in written format with a few additions. So I wouldn't recommend doing them back to back. But it's actually what it sounds like. It is her experiences and her basically talking about feminism. And it's a little bit Feminist 101. But the reason why I think it stands out is because she is a Nigerian woman. And you just don't see that perspective very often. And not only that, but she talks about her experiences as a Nigerian woman. As a very successful Nigerian woman. And as a Nigerian woman who defies all of expectations. And she talks about the ways in which we raise boys and girls. And the way that harms boys as equally as it harms girls, albeit in different ways. And it's just very interesting. I listened to this audiobook. It's so short. The book was like 50 pages long, I think. The audiobook was only 45 minutes. I literally just listened to it. And I listened on double speed. So I was listening to it for like 20 minutes while sweeping leaves outside. It was really good. And she narrates the audiobook herself. And I would very highly recommend it. 4 out of 5 stars. Then second, I got an arc of Unbroken by Brooklyn Ray. This is a novella, like companion novel in her Port Louis Witches series, which I love. This one is about this guy who, with his sister and another guy who just moves in with them, they move to Port Louis and they move into this old house that's being rented out. And there's a demon there who the main character thinks is pretty hot. And it's the book for the monster fuckers, as Brooklyn Ray has been hyping it. It's erotica, guys, okay? It's magical erotica. You need to know that going in. Lots of blood kink. Oh my god. Such well-written blood kink, but so much of it. There's like stuff with the fact that the demon has horns and like that plays into it. It's very sexy, very not safe for work. I tried to read it on the bus, wouldn't recommend. But it's also kind of sweet and the relationship's kind of cute and like the demon, I can't remember his name by the way, I'm very sorry. I'm worried about saying the wrong name. He like bakes and it's just like really, Victor, that's it. He just like bakes and it's really sweet and the relationship's really cute. You just get cameos from the characters. There's a part where like you see Liam and there's like a whole thing where he mentions Ryder and you see like just other characters and I loved it so much. The cover is gorgeous. I think it's out now. Either that or it's coming out in like a week. And it's so good. I'd highly recommend this series. You need to know they're very sexy though. Lots of blood kink in all of them. Make sure you can handle that shit, but if you can, oh my god, do I recommend it. They're so good. 4 out of 5 stars. Then finally, my number 1 favorite of the month was a very unexpected one. This was actually what I was meant to read in April for Unsolved-a-thon, but I accidentally read the entire thing on the 31st. I was just gonna start it, and then I just read it all. And that is Never Contented Things by Sarah Porter. This has some very mixed reviews. It has an average of 2.9 or something on Goodreads. But basically, this is about 2 siblings called Ksenia, I think is how you say her name. I could be wrong though. And her brother, whose name I can't remember for some reason. Give me a second. I need to figure out how to pronounce these names. I should have done this beforehand. I'm aware of this. Ksenia and Josh, who are foster siblings. She's 18, he's 16. And it's really fucked up, and it's basically how fairies fuck with their lives. And these fairies are awful. Like, people talk a very big game about, oh, I want fairies who are cruel and who don't even care about anyone. And then the second they get them, they're like, but not these ones. It's very weird. It's like they want them, but they don't. And this is what these fairies are. They are also, this is not like The Cruel Prince. It's not about court intrigue. This is not even really about the fairies. The fairies are just horrible obstacles. This is about the characters. This is about the fact that Josh is romantically in love with Ksenia and is manipulating her. This is about her thinking she deserves that love because of how she's been treated throughout her life. She was raped when she was 11 by her foster brother, and her mother was a drug addict. And it's about Josh's best friend Lexi and her coming to terms with her feelings for Ksenia, and also her just wanting to save her friend. And it's twisted as fuck. Really twisted. There's lots of very uncomfortable things, but it's purposeful. This book is meant to make you feel uncomfortable. This book the characters sometimes are awful. They are atrocious. They are terrible. But that's the point. Also, all the characters are queer as well, which I think I should also point out. Is about terrible queer characters, which I think we need more of when they're done well, and I think they are done well in this book. The dialogue sometimes is a bit weird and clunky, but it weirdly works just because the book is very just gets under your skin and it just makes you feel icky. And I loved it. I got this as an art from NetGalley, just a side note. It was really good. I would definitely recommend going to my review and checking out all the trigger warnings because there are a lot. And if maybe you think you can handle it and you think you'd like it, I would highly recommend. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I don't know what's stopping it from me giving it a 5. It's just not quite a 5, but it's definitely higher than a 4. So 4.5 it is. So let's see. I don't even have many books because most of them I get from my library, but here is a very small stack of all the books that I'm now short. Comment down below, tell me your favourite books of the past quarter, tell me your least favourite books of the past quarter, tell me your thoughts and feelings on the ones I just mentioned, comment anything down below as long as it's not mean. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want more bookish content. I actually don't think that my content next week is going to be bookish though, in saying that just from memory. No, next week you're not going to get bookish content, and the week after you're not going to get bookish content. But the week after that you will, so just stick around for content. I post videos every Sunday and I hope to see you here next time.